In One Piece, there are several antagonists and villains spread all throughout the story, but out of all of them, two of them stick out to me and the rest of the fandom, and those two are Doflamingo and Katakuri. So in this video, I'll be using those two to explain how Oda mastered villainy and antagonism through those two characters. So strap in, because I'm about to get real in depth with this video. But before I do jump into the video, if you guys enjoy content like this, you know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe, as I do post content like this regularly, and to be honest, it's win-win. You guys show me love and support, and give it back to you in the form of videos. Whether it's One Piece, other anime, or just fiction in general, it do something I'm covering it, so be there when I go there. But I feel like I rambled on long enough, so why don't I jump straight into the video and go over how Oda mastered the difference between villainy and antagonism through Doflamingo and Katakuri. Now, the very first thing that I do want to go over is the difference between a villain and an antagonist. Now, it is very common for people to mix these two up, as these two things are very similar but very different at the exact same time. For instance, antagonists don't have to be evil. Antagonists can actually be good people but just stand in the way of the protagonist, then making them an antagonist. They are somebody that stands against the protagonist for an arc or just for a series of events, and they then become the antagonist of an arc or just the antagonist of a series. A villain, on the other hand, is somebody who is genuinely evil, and then on top of that may stand against the protagonist. One of the easiest examples for you guys to understand what an antagonist is versus what a villain is would be Robin and Crocodile. Robin was an antagonist. She was somebody that was standing against Luffy and was doing things to obviously get in his way, but as we found out, she wasn't really like that. But either way, she was still an antagonist when she was first introduced. Now, a villain is Doflamingo. He stood against Luffy, but on top of that, he was also doing heinous things that then made him a villain. There are several other examples that I could pull out of the bag, but these two are probably the best ones. Villains and antagonists aren't the exact same thing, but you can technically make them the exact same thing, as most villains are antagonists, but most antagonists aren't villains. There are two different things that are going on here, and villains are more likely to be antagonists, while antagonists aren't more likely to be villains. It may be a common thing, but antagonists can be their own separate entity. And so, with that being said, I feel like I can now explain why Doflamingo and Katakuri do symbolize Oda mastering the difference between villainy and antagonism. Now, the very first thing I do want to go over are their childhoods. Now, the difference between these two is that one of them were already born on the sea and they already had to go through the hardships of the sea, while the other were born in a holy land and were then sent down to the real world to then fend for themselves and see how it's truly like. Now, what really separates these two is the fact that Katakuri from a very young age always loved playing with his siblings and was an older sibling, just like Doflamingo. But not like Doflamingo, Katakuri was loving and caring for his siblings, unlike Doflamingo, who at the beginning of his life showed very concerning signs, and these signs all pointed towards where he would end up in the end. You see, somebody like Doflamingo isn't somebody that you can just fix. Doflamingo from a very young age, even before everything happened, was very, very deranged. But with what happened with the incident where his family were then hung up and people were throwing stuff at him, and then he finally broke, that then gave him a driving force to then enact upon how he feels. This is very different from Katakuri, as when things happened to Katakuri, he then stood against it but didn't decide to turn to villainy. Instead, he decided to become perfect for his family. Two very different things here. See, when Katakuri's family were then being scrutinized, instead of just turning evil and then beating everybody up and then continuing to do it because he feels pleasure from it. Instead, he decided to use the strength that he knows he has to protect his family. The very opposite thing that Doflamingo does. Instead, Doflamingo decides to eat away at his family with this power that he has and ends it. Now he's only left with his brother, and throughout their life you can definitely tell out of the two of them who is the better brother. As you will know, Corazon was the one who was pure good while Doflamingo was pure evil. Now one thing I do want to add is that it seems like Doflamingo's family isn't as bad as you may think. I mean, we even saw one of them get killed on the Holy Land, and we do have his father along with his mother, and obviously you have Corazon. It really just seems like all of the generational bad, evil intentions went all into Doflamingo, and you can say the opposite for Katakuri unless you then had Burley and a lot of his siblings. You see, even though Katakuri is a pirate, a lot of his family members aren't really that bad and only just listen to their mother. If their mother was actually just a good person, they wouldn't have ended up that way. While Doflamingo, he is fueled by pure and utter evil. There is two things going on here. Now, I'm not going to sit here and paint Katakuri out to be some sort of saint, but the difference between these two is that from the very beginning, Doflamingo was already going to be some sort of symbol of evil, while Katakuri was heading down the path of being the older sibling that will forever protect you. And what I think is really cool about this is the fact that both of them are older siblings. Both of them are siblings that the younger one would love to turn to. The exact same thing with Luffy, Ace, and Sabo. Luffy is the younger one, and so when he faces off against these two, it's kind of like he's facing off against the older brothers that have gone the wrong way. For Doflamingo at least. For Katakuri, it's a very different story. And when Luffy does come into contact with these two and begins seeing what they are like, you can tell just by the way he interacts with them that Luffy can tell who they really are deep down. Doflamingo on one hand is pure evil, and you can tell Luffy despises his guts. And this is where Oda's masterful work of Villainy comes in. Oda plays into this, and even lets us see the horrific acts that Doflamingo does. As I said before, since childhood he has done it, and so only throughout the years has it gotten worse and worse. Killing his own brother just so he can try to get a devil fruit that was already consumed, then going on to then torture Law, taking over an entire country and using their king to slay them as he is taking it over. This is all terrible things that he does, and he does it because, well, first of all, the kingdom was technically in his name, but then second of all, he kind of just feels like it. He even says it himself, he loves chaos, and that is one of the more interesting things about his character. Doflamingo doesn't really care what happens to him, he just cares about what happens in the end. What will happen in the end? Will Villainy and everything that's bad in the world come out on top, or will the good side win? He is somebody that feeds off of chaos, off of negative energy, and that is why he is a villain to the core. He himself represents it, but everything he stands for also represents it. Now, it's not to say that he doesn't care about anybody else. We saw that he did care about his family that he did make along the way, and that is also another twisted thing that really does compare him to Katakuri. While on one hand you have Doflamingo, who will tear anybody down who says anything about his family, you then have Katakuri, who will do the exact same thing, but I do believe that their driving forces are from two completely different places. Katakuri does it from love, and you can tell that it's from love because from a very young age he was doing it and did it all to protect Burley, and you can see when they interact with each other there is pure love there. But with Doflamingo, it's more of a protective thing. Doflamingo is protective to the core. Anything that touches anything that he has, needs to be torn down, or disrespects anything he has needs to be torn down, and that's just how he is. Doflamingo's relationship with Corazon reminds me of All For One and Yoichi. Their relationship wasn't out of love, it was more because yes, we are blood, but one of them loves to keep the other one as a possession and believes that they need to be together because they are blood related and they're the only thing that keeps them reminded of who their family was in the first place, while the other one just wants to do pure good and will do anything to get away from their older brother's grips that are extremely restrictive. It's their possessiveness that drives their so-called love, and that is what a villain is. Many villains are sociopaths, so what they will do is they will latch onto things that they believe is theirs and hold it close to them like they are a possession. Most of the time in these stories, it comes as a sibling or a family member. For these examples, it's going to be their younger brother. They hold on to him like they're their possession, their pride possession at that, and if anybody tries to take him away from them, then they are doing wrong, but in the end, they don't mind killing their younger brother just so they can get over it and just so they can just move on. The after effects of these events do turn out to be them caring about it a little bit, but not too much. Their younger brother went against them, so they had to die. That is somebody then becoming the symbol of evil. Katakuri is somebody who, from a very young age, did everything he wanted to do because of his family. He did it so he could protect them and genuinely because he loved them. He knew that his mother wasn't the best and knew that she abused them. Katakuri isn't an idiot. That is why he wanted Luffy to take Big Mom down if he ever came back to Whole Cake Island. But instead of going against her, he decided because he loves his siblings and deep down he loves his mother, he decided to go along with it and continue playing that game. He took all the weight on his shoulders to be that perfect brother. The one that everybody can't say anything to because he's never fallen. He is the reason why people are scared of the commanders inside the family. He is the one that will keep their respect up. Even though their mother is feared, he will also be feared as well because that's who he wants to be to protect his family. And he'll do anything, even if that means hiding his weaknesses. And that's something that when Luffy comes in, really does show you who he is. Now everybody knows the difference between Luffy and Katakuri and how their fight went on and everything like that. Luffy is the exact opposite, but technically the exact same person as Katakuri. They are people with flaws, but the difference between them is that Katakuri is an older brother who has to protect his younger siblings, while Luffy is a younger brother who is reckless and doesn't really care for the protection of his older siblings. I mean, it'll be nice here and there, but it's his own adventure. While Katakuri isn't really on an adventure and stays put to protect his family and keep his status up. That is who Katakuri is. That's why he is shocked when Luffy has his scars just chilling. Luffy has his scars on his chest, on his face, everywhere, and keeps pushing forward and lets everybody see who he is. Luffy makes everybody know that he makes mistakes, while Katakuri doesn't want anybody to think that because that is weakness and that is something that he cannot betray, because if he betrays that then allows people to then have something on him and then attack. He can't allow people to attack because that then puts his family in danger, and he does this all out of love. Compared to Doflamingo, who doesn't really care about all of that, and Doflamingo, when he sees Luffy, sees him as the liberator he is. Doflamingo is the very opposite of that. He is true villainy. He is somebody that will capture people and will keep people enslaved and does not care. He is somebody that stands against Nika's entire existence as a whole, almost like a baby emu, the fact that he doesn't mind enslaving people and keeping the oppressed down. Luffy, on the other hand, is somebody that is the opposite to him in a very spiritual aspect. Doflamingo's spirit is filled with evil, while Luffy's is filled with hope, will, and light. Two contrasting different things. And that is something that I love that Oda has done. Oda has made these two the opposite of Luffy due to Luffy's experiences and due to just who he is as a character. Katakuri is the opposite of Luffy's experiences and just who he is as a younger brother and just a person, while Doflamingo's spirit is the opposite of Luffy's spirit. Two different things that these characters do, but can technically be the exact same thing, but because of the way they're being portrayed, it makes Katakuri an antagonist while Doflamingo a villain. Doflamingo is pure evil. Katakuri isn't evil, but don't get me wrong, he will get his hands dirty if his family is in danger, but he does this all in goodwill. There is a reason why he was able to see who Luffy really is at the end of the fight and understand that Luffy is his equal. Luffy is somebody that he should respect. Even though Luffy is something that he tries not to be, Luffy in reality, even though they do oppose each other, he is him. Doflamingo, on the other hand, is fundamentally as a person the opposite of Luffy. His spirit will never ever match with Luffy. He is evil incarnate. He is somebody that takes pride in manipulating people and possessing people. That's something that Luffy will never ever be, and that is why I truly do believe that he is Luffy's greatest villain. Doflamingo's spirit is empowered by chaos, while Luffy's spirit is empowered by liberation and freedom. Doflamingo loves it when people are under his grasp, while Luffy hates being under somebody's grasp. Doflamingo is the oldest brother. Luffy is the youngest brother, and the reason this is such a big thing is because the older brother and younger brother dynamic is something that is extremely pivotal in One Piece. We've seen many younger and older brothers, and the way Oda portrays this is by showing you that older siblings can impact how the younger siblings function. If the older sibling isn't reacting too well to the younger sibling, then the younger sibling will then defect and do what they want to do. We see this with what happens with Katakuri and his younger sister when she sees that he isn't impressed with her and how she is trying to belittle Luffy while Luffy is giving it his all. You also then get to see this with Doflamingo and Corazon, where Doflamingo uses Corazon until Corazon has it no further and decides to do his own thing. The brotherly dynamics we get inside the series are beautiful, and I feel like Doflamingo represents this perfectly. Along with Luffy. Luffy had amazing brothers growing up, so putting that in contrast with a terrible older brother who killed his younger brother, that is something that completely goes against Luffy, who saw his brother die in his arms to protect him. Two different things. Doflamingo got rid of his younger brother, while Luffy was saved by his older brother. In spirit, these two will never ever see eye to eye and will forever be against each other. And that is why he is his greatest villain. The villainy of Doflamingo is something that can be replicated by another character, but the way he went about it with how he wrote Doflamingo into the story and wrote his whole entire life was perfect to juxtapose and go against a Luffy who just came out of the pre-time skip. And so then when you go on to Katakuri, it then shows you that there are still brotherly figures out there, and the brotherly love that Luffy received from Ace and Sabo does exist out there and can be replicated by somebody who is extremely like him. Yeah, that is the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed this video as I did enjoy making it, and I really want to actually do deep dives into Katakuri and Doflamingo, as this video was just me basically just putting these two against each other to show you how Oda perfected it. But if you guys want me to, I can go into in-depth analysis on both of these two individually. And so yeah, with that being said, I love you all. I'll see you guys next video. Goodbye.